The scream cut through the auditorium as Michael said, "You knew this was mine." His words echoed off the steel rafters, raw and jagged. Ethan stood center stage, lights burning gold across his grin, as if the betrayal was his victory crown. Emily gasped in the shadows, her hands trembling as she whispered, "How could you?" The crowd cheered louder, mistaking pain for performance. Every promise they once made thundered in Michael's skull, crashing like glass against stone. Ethan's smile widened, daring Michael to collapse. David, hidden in the back row, clenched his fists, the silent witness to a friendship being slaughtered. Time fractured into shards of memory. Childhood summers, blood oath pacts, shared secrets by the river. All now mocked by Ethan's shining moment. Michael said, "You built this spotlight with my scars." Ethan only raised his arms higher, basking in a glory that was never his to claim. The world roared for him, but Michael heard only the shattering of trust. Michael stumbled backstage, the noise of applause muffled by pounding in his chest. He said, "This was ours." His voice cracked like old wood breaking. Ethan's laugh echoed through the curtains, cruel and victorious. Emily rushed forward, whispering, "Michael, please don't fall apart now." Her hands hovered, but didn't touch him. David stayed near the exit, silent, eyes darting between them. Michael said, "Every secret, every night we dreamed, he burned them all for claps." The weight of memories crushed him. Ethan's shadow loomed larger than the stage lights. A memory cut in like lightning, two boys swearing forever on a rusted bridge. Michael said, "We'll never leave each other." Ethan replied with a grin, "Never." That word now mocked Michael in every echo. Emily's voice tried to ground him, "He's not worth your soul." But Michael's mind replayed laughter and summers, not betrayal. David muttered softly, "Some bonds die louder than they were born." The silence after his words felt heavier than thunder. Ethan pushed through the curtains, sweat glistening but smile intact. He said, "They loved me, Michael. They always will." Michael snarled, "You stole it. Every piece was ours." Emily whispered, "Stop, please." Ethan's eyes burned sharp with pride and envy. David shifted uneasily but stayed silent. The air felt thick, suffocating with betrayal. Michael said, "One day, they'll see you for the thief you are." Ethan only smirked, his silence louder than his lies. Michael collapsed onto a worn bench, breath ragged. Emily sat near him, whispering, "I remember when you both dreamed together." Michael said, "He dreamed of stealing mine." His hands shook as though holding shattered glass. Ethan's laughter faintly seeped through the walls, stabbing deeper. David finally spoke, his tone flat. "A spotlight can blind, but it cannot hide truth forever." The words hit like a gavel. Michael bowed his head, whispering, "Then let the truth burn him." The memory unfolded under the golden haze of summer, where the world seemed too soft to ever break. Michael said, "We'll never let go, Ethan." Their laughter carried across the fields, a promise woven into the air. Ethan replied, "Forever, no matter what." The words felt eternal back then, carved into the innocence of youth. Emily, years later, whispered in disbelief, "How could something so pure turn to this?" The sound of her voice threaded through Michael's memories, like a song he couldn't unhear. David remained in the shadows of remembrance, saying nothing, but knowing this was the foundation that would later collapse. Trust had once been so simple, like the air they breathed. Michael's smile in that memory glowed brighter than the sun, untouched by betrayal's shadow. Ethan's eyes then held warmth, not envy. Time mocked Michael now, for he had believed in forever. Night crept in, bringing with it secrets only whispered in darkness. Michael said, "No matter what happens, I'll have your back." Ethan nodded, replying, "And I'll never turn away." They spoke like soldiers swearing an oath under stars. Emily later remembered nights like these and thought, how could such vows unravel so easily? David in silence recalled the way those words once anchored their lives. The bond forged in shadows had seemed unbreakable, as though the universe itself witnessed their promises. Now those echoes rang hollow, betraying the innocence they once cherished. Michael's chest ached even remembering it. Ethan's loyalty back then had felt undeniable. The night sky, endless and star-stained, was their witness, but it did nothing to save them now. When Emily entered their world, she was like a spark neither expected. Her laughter echoed through old streets as she said, "You two are impossible without me." Michael grinned. She might be right. Ethan's smile held something deeper, a spark of envy he disguised with charm. Emily never noticed how his gaze lingered too long. David said quietly, "Every story shifts when a third voice joins." Michael's heart beat quicker around her, though he buried it beneath loyalty. Ethan's silence spoke louder than words, masking desires even he didn't admit. That was the moment the bond began to bend, though no one knew it yet. The presence of Emily would be both blessing and curse, the wedge no one wanted but everyone felt. The three of them sat on rooftops, staring at city lights scattered like fallen stars. Emily said, "Promise me no matter what, this won't break." Michael answered quickly, "Never." Ethan forced a smile, replying of course. Yet his eyes betrayed unease, reflecting jealousy. David, unseen, later said, "That night truth already shifted, though none of you dared admit it." Michael believed every word, his loyalty unshaken. Emily's faith was fragile but hopeful, her smile radiant against the darkness. Ethan hid behind the mask of agreement, his heart already restless with shadows. The rooftop promises hung heavy, binding them with invisible chains. None of them realized the cracks forming in the silence between words. Years of laughter felt like armor against the world. Michael said, "We'll be legends together, just wait." Ethan echoed, "Together forever," but his voice faltered slightly. Emily clapped her hands, saying, "You two are unshakable." David muttered to himself, "Even the strongest walls collapse when cracks are ignored." The bond appeared unbreakable in that moment, strengthened by countless memories. Yet Michael's future pain was already rooted here, hidden beneath Ethan's uneasy echo. Their smiles shone like shields, reflecting dreams too bright to fade. The promise of forever was carved into their youth, but youth never warns of betrayal. Michael believed in a bond stronger than time. Ethan's eyes, though, carried a shadow only David noticed. Michael stared at his phone, the unanswered calls stacked like stones on his chest. He said, "He used to pick up on the first ring." Emily whispered, "Maybe he's busy." The excuse felt thin, like paper against a storm. Ethan's silence stretched days into years, a void that screamed louder than words. Michael's heart sank with each buzz, ignored. David muttered, "A friend who doesn't answer has already chosen distance." Michael clung to hope, replaying old laughs in his head. But each missed call was a blade carving trust apart. Ethan's absence became louder than his presence ever was. At the party, the music roared, but Ethan's silence toward Michael was louder. Michael said, "You didn't even look at me." Ethan replied coolly, "I was busy." Emily noticed the stiffness, whispering, "Why do you two feel like strangers?" David leaned against the wall, eyes scanning both with knowing weight. Michael's chest tightened at Ethan's dismissive tone. What once flowed like rivers now felt like dry stone. Ethan laughed with others, but his eyes avoided Michael's. Every shared joke now belonged to strangers. The bond that once lit the room now cast only shadows. Michael froze when Ethan's gaze lingered on Emily too long. Michael said, "Why do you look at her like that?" Ethan smirked, "She's just fun to be around." Emily blushed faintly, whispering, "Don't make it something it's not." David muttered under his breath, "Eyes reveal what mouths bury." Michael's stomach twisted, memories of loyalty clashing with flashes of envy in Ethan's grin. The silence between them grew jagged. Michael's voice shook, "We promised to protect each other." Ethan's smile cut sharper, leaving no room for trust. Emily looked away, caught in a storm she never asked to enter. Excuses replaced presence. Ethan said, "I can't make it tonight," though Michael saw him laughing online. Michael whispered, "You'd rather lie than face me." Emily sighed. He's drifting, Michael. David said quietly. Distance is betrayal's first mask. Michael replayed every missed meeting, each excuse cutting deeper. Ethan's voice over the phone grew colder, rehearsed. The warmth was gone, replaced with shadows. Michael clenched his fists, muttering, "He's not the same person I trusted." Emily laid a hand on his shoulder, but even her comfort couldn't drown the ache. David finally spoke, his words landing heavy as stone. "I see the cracks forming," he said. Michael looked at him, pleading, "Then why won't you stop him?" David whispered, "Because truth must reveal itself." Ethan laughed in the distance with others, unaware of the storm brewing. Emily said softly, "I feel it too, everything changing." Michael's chest tightened, his voice raw. "We were supposed to last forever." David's eyes darkened. "Forever isn't broken in a moment, Michael. It dies piece by piece." Silence swallowed the room, a silence that spoke louder than betrayal itself. Michael froze in the hallway, his back pressed against the cold wall as Ethan's voice carried from the next room. Ethan said, "It was never his. It was mine all along." Michael's heart pounded like war drums. Emily gasped when she realized what she had overheard, whispering, "No, he wouldn't." David leaned into the silence, his jaw tight, muttering, "Now the mask slips." Michael's chest burned as though every memory ignited into ash. Ethan's voice, once warm, now sliced sharp like glass. Michael said softly, "You stole everything and dressed it as glory." His breath shook, the truth cutting deeper than any blade. Emily's voice trembled as she confronted Ethan. Emily said, "You pulled me into this lie." Ethan smirked, replying, "You were always the key to breaking him." Michael staggered forward, saying, "You used her, Ethan." David whispered sharply, "This is the moment everything breaks." Emily's eyes filled with tears, torn between anger and disbelief. Ethan's charm cracked, revealing something colder beneath. Michael's voice cracked as he said, "You betrayed us both." Ethan only grinned wider, wearing betrayal like armor. The room felt suffocated, walls shrinking closer as truth spilled like poison. The door creaked, and from the shadows stepped an older figure, Lucas, the ghost from Ethan's past. Michael blinked, whispering, "Who is he?" Ethan stiffened, muttering, "He shouldn't be here." Lucas said, "I know what you did before all this, Ethan. Lies don't stay buried forever." Emily's breath caught as secrets unfolded beyond what she feared. David's voice dropped. "The past has returned to finish what you started hiding." Ethan's mask cracked fully now, fear flashing across his face. Michael said coldly, "Even shadows reveal the truth." The room felt frozen, haunted by history resurfacing. Ethan stepped forward, fury masking fear. Ethan shouted, "None of you understand. I deserved this." Michael snapped back, "You deserve nothing but the trust you burned." Emily's voice cracked, "You used love as a weapon." David said, "And every weapon cuts the one who wields it." Lucas laughed bitterly, saying, "You've always been this way, Ethan. Nothing but envy clothed in charm." The tension snapped like a wire ready to slice. Ethan's glare turned wild, his chest heaving with the weight of exposed truth. The room felt like a battlefield disguised as four walls. The silence after Ethan's outburst was louder than his screams. Michael whispered, "Everything I loved was a lie." Ethan's chest rose and fell, his grin fading into something hollow. Emily sobbed, saying, "You destroyed the only thing that mattered." David said flatly, "Truth has no applause, only scars." Lucas muttered, "And scars will always outlive the spotlight." Michael's fists trembled as rage and grief clashed. Ethan turned his face away, ashamed but unbroken. The air pulsed with the weight of betrayal. Michael's voice finally broke, "Then let this be the end of us." His words shattered the last thread of forever. Michael's roar cracked the air, his voice breaking years of silence. Michael shouted, "You stole my life and wore it like a mask." Ethan fired back, "I took what you were too weak to claim." Emily screamed, "Stop, both of you. but her voice drowned in the storm. David muttered darkly, "The storm has finally arrived." Lucas leaned on the wall, smirking as if watching destiny unfold. Michael's fists trembled, his chest burning with betrayal. Ethan's smile twisted with rage, no longer charm but venom. The walls shook with their voices, as though the universe itself could not contain them. Michael stepped forward, his face inches from Ethan's. Michael snarled, "Every word, every laugh, every vow. Lies." Ethan spat back, "You were blind. I only gave truth shape." Emily cried, "You're destroying each other." David's voice rose for once. "This is not truth. This is ruin." Lucas muttered, "The louder you scream, the closer the collapse." Michael's tears burned but did not fall. Ethan's chest heaved, veins showing at his temple. The room seemed too small for their rage, every word hitting like lightning, every silence thundering louder. David finally raised his voice, heavy with finality. David said, "If this ends in blood, none of you will walk away whole." Michael turned to him, voice raw, "You watched him destroy me and said nothing." Emily whispered, "Please, don't tear apart what little is left." Ethan sneered, "David always hid in shadows. A coward." Lucas laughed bitterly, "At least the coward speaks the truth tonight." The weight of judgment hung heavy. Michael's chest heaved, as fury clashed with despair. Ethan's glare burned hotter, his smirk desperate now. Emily wept openly, torn between them all. The clash ignited fully. Michael lunged forward, grabbing Ethan by the collar. Michael shouted, "You'll never wear my skin again." Ethan struggled, yelling, "It was never yours to keep." Emily shrieked, "Stop it!" David rushed forward, pulling them apart, muttering, "This ends now." Lucas said with sharp calm, "Let him fall. Truth is better than peace." The room shook with their collision, the sound of fists against fabric, breath against rage. Michael's heart pounded like war drums. Ethan's smirk cracked into raw desperation. Silence fell after the storm. Michael dropped Ethan's collar, his hands shaking. Michael whispered, "The friendship is dead." Ethan's voice cracked. "It was dead long before tonight." Emily sobbed, saying, "You both destroyed forever." David's eyes hardened. "Some endings are louder than beginnings." Lucas muttered coldly, "And this is the sound of ashes." Michael turned away, broken but unbent. Ethan stood hollow, his victory stripped bare. The friendship that once held them was gone, nothing but ruin echoing against the walls. Michael sat alone in the empty rehearsal room, the echoes of screams still carved into the walls. Michael whispered, "The friendship is ashes." His voice trembled with sorrow, but carried a strange strength. Emily stood in the doorway, her eyes swollen from tears. She said softly, "I never wanted it to end this way." David muttered, "Endings rarely obey our wants." Lucas leaned against the frame, silent, his presence heavy as judgment. Michael clenched his fists, staring at the floor. Every memory replayed in fragments, laughter breaking into shards of betrayal. Yet beneath the pain, a fragile dignity stirred. Emily stepped closer, her voice trembling. Emily said, "I thought I was a bridge, but I became the wedge." Michael shook his head, whispering, "He would have broken us with or without you." David murmured, "Love doesn't destroy, envy does." Emily wept, her hands covering her face. Michael placed a trembling hand on hers, saying, "You were never the weapon, only the excuse." Lucas exhaled sharply, muttering, "Excuses build graves faster than knives." The air was thick with grief and fragile forgiveness. Michael's heart cracked, but a sliver of compassion glowed through the ruins. Ethan stood in the corner now, stripped of triumph. Ethan said bitterly, "You'll all remember me as the villain." Michael's voice was steady. "No, we'll remember you as the friend who chose envy over loyalty." Emily whispered, "You could have had both, love and trust." David said firmly, "Glory built on betrayal collapses faster than silence." Lucas added coldly, and silence is all that will follow you now. Ethan's shoulders sagged, his eyes hollow. His crown had turned to dust, applause fading into nothing. Michael turned away, reclaiming dignity from the ashes Ethan left. Michael finally stood, his voice low but unshaken. Michael said, "I choose dignity over revenge." Ethan looked away, muttering, "Then you're weaker than me." David answered sharply, "No, he's stronger because he walks away." Emily whispered, "Strength is leaving when staying destroys you." Lucas smirked faintly, saying, "Some scars shine brighter than crowns." The silence following was deafening. Michael's steps echoed across the wooden floor as he left the room. Each step carried both weight and freedom, the painful rebirth of someone who had lost everything but himself. The room was left hollow after Michael's exit. Emily said softly, "He carried everything and still chose to walk away." David whispered, "That's how scars are born, not from weakness but survival." Ethan sat silently, his pride shattered, his spotlight gone. Lucas muttered, "Spotlights fade. Scars remain." Emily bowed her head, tears slipping silently. David leaned against the window, his breath fogging the glass. The silence roared louder than screams, the friendship buried under its own ruins. Outside, dawn broke, the first light of a world without their forever. Michael walked alone through the city streets at dawn, his breath visible in the cold air, each step echoing against silent concrete. He whispered, "Life moves forward even when hearts don't," his voice breaking into the emptiness. Emily's voice haunted him from memory. "You deserved better," a reminder of what he had lost, and what he would never regain. David's words lingered too, "Better isn't given, it's built from ruin," and Michael realized survival was more than breathing. It was walking forward when everything behind begged him to stop. Lucas' voice slithered through his thoughts like smoke. "Scars are stronger than crowns," and for the first time Michael believed it. Ethan's absence was a ghost louder than presence, his laughter replaced by echoes of betrayal. The applause was gone, the stage empty, but Michael's footsteps carried on. They were heavy, dragging the weight of shattered trust, but still they were forward. He was scarred, not broken, and that fragile difference mattered. The rusted bridge loomed before Michael, the same place where two boys once swore forever. He leaned on the railing, staring at the rushing river below, water roaring like all their broken promises. He whispered, "We said forever," his voice trembling, words dissolving into the wind. Emily's memory echoed, "Love doesn't end like this," her faith in what they had once shared burning faintly in his mind. David's judgment cut in like steel, "Forever is fragile," and Michael realized youth had lied to him more than Ethan ever had. Lucas's cold philosophy drifted in, every past returns to haunt the present, and Michael could feel the weight of ghosts pressing on his chest. The boy who once laughed here, with messy hair and dreams too bright to fail, was gone. In his place stood a man scarred by betrayal, older in spirit than in years. Yet, as he stared into the merciless current, he felt survival whisper through the pain. Forever had ended, but he was still here, and he would not drown. In the corner of a dim cafe, David finally spoke the words he had buried too long. His voice shook as he said, "I warned myself not to stay silent, but silence was my betrayal too." Michael looked at him, eyes tired but steady, whispering, "Your words come too late, but at least they're true." Emily sat beside Michael, her hand resting gently on his shoulder, whispering, "You still have people who see you." David bowed his head, shame pulling his shoulders down like chains. Lucas' presence was felt even in absence, his voice lingering in memory. Truth always cuts no matter when it's spoken. The confession hung in the cafe's warm air, heavy with regret. For Michael, it wasn't redemption, but it was acknowledgement, something Ethan had never given him. Emily's touch grounded him, reminding him he was not entirely alone. The cafe clock ticked loudly, its rhythm marking the weight of every second, each one carrying the knowledge that silence had cost more than words ever could. Michael entered his old room, a place where the walls still held the ghosts of laughter. Posters faded on the walls, photographs lining shelves like silent witnesses. He whispered, "Every picture lies now." Emily, standing near the door, replied softly, "Memories don't lie, people do." David added firmly, "Letting go doesn't erase what was real." Michael picked up a photograph of him and Ethan as teenagers, laughing with the innocence of boys untouched by envy. His fingers trembled as he stared at it, torn between rage and grief. For a long moment he considered tearing it apart, shredding the lie it now represented, but his hand lowered instead. He placed the frame face down on the desk, not erasing the memory, but refusing to worship it. Lucas's words echoed like a curse. Some ghosts remain even when buried. Michael's breath shook, but it was steady enough to remind him this act was not weakness. It was survival disguised as surrender. The night was still, fog curling under the pale street lamp. Michael stood in the halo of light, breath slow, scars invisible, but present in every movement. He whispered, "He didn't just betray me, he betrayed every version of us we could have been." Emily stood nearby, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. David lowered his head, his silence heavier than his words ever could be. Lucas lingered in the shadows, fading slowly into the mist, his cold truths no longer needed. Ethan's absence was the loudest ghost of all, louder than screams, louder than lies. Michael's final words did not burn with rage, but cut colder than any blade. They carved into the air, into Emily's tears, into David's silence, into Lucas' fading stare. It was not just the end of a friendship, it was the burial of every future that once glowed with promise. The scar remained, not to consume him, but to remind him. He had survived betrayal's fire, and he would never burn the same way again.